About 4:44 in the morning, the sheriffs received a 911 call and responded and found a male victim of a gunshot.
He's just a gentle man. You could just see him always involved with his family and his kids.
The wind moved gently through the trees of Malibu Creek State Park that early summer morning. The kind of breeze that usually promised peace, but not that day. Not at 4:44 a.m., somewhere among the tents, where families slept and dreams swirled beneath canvas roofs. A single sound pierced the stillness. A gunshot. Sharp. Sudden. Alien in such a place. Lauren stirred in her tent, blinking into the darkness. Her friends from church still lay asleep. She thought it was a firecracker at first, but something about the stillness afterward, something about the way her chest tightened, told her otherwise. 50 yards away, another camper, Scott, was also roused. He'd brought his 2 daughters, along with his brother-in-law Tristan and Tristan's little girls. He was used to outdoor sounds, but this one didn't belong. Then he heard its soft crying, a child. He unzipped the tent, stepping into the cold hush of pre-dawn. The sky was just beginning to pale. Something was wrong. At Tristan's tent, Scott's hand trembled as he reached for the zipper. Inside, he found 2 small girls huddled next to their father. One of them, not even 3, repeated the word wet as she clutched at his chest. But it wasn't water. It was blood. Scott tried to rouse Tristan, called his name, pressed his fingers to his neck. Nothing. He pulled the girls out, shielding them with his arms, and called into the campground, hoping someone, anyone was awake, was listening, was able to help. Someone did respond. A woman named Stacy whispered her 911 call from her tent, afraid the shooter might still be nearby. She'd heard the crying too, so small, so desperate, repeating daddy over and over again. And somewhere beyond the line of trees, someone else heard that too, the man who had pulled the trigger. Malibu Creek State Park is supposed to be a sanctuary, tucked away from the chaos of Los Angeles. It was where families came to unplug, where children roasted marshmallows and hikers chased waterfalls. It had been a movie set once, Planet of the Apes, Butch Cassidy, MASH. But on this morning, the stage was set for something different, something horrifying, because in this sanctuary, one man had bled out beside his daughters while the rest of the campground slept. That man was Tristan Beaudette, and no one, not the campers, not the rangers, not even the sheriff's deputies understood yet that this was not just a terrible accident or a random act of cruelty. It was the result of something far more insidious. A predator had been hiding in plain sight. The forensic details were straightforward, clinical. A single shot, fired from outside the tent. A bullet had torn through the thin synthetic fabric, hit Tristan in the head, and exited through the opposite side. The entry hole was small, almost invisible to the naked eye. There were no signs of a break-in, no confrontation, no screaming, just a single calculated strike in the dark. Tristan died instantly. His 2 daughters, ages 2 and 4, slept beside him, splattered with blood, woken by the violence they couldn't yet comprehend. Imagine the horror of that 2 children opening their eyes to find the world has shifted beyond recognition, and their protector lies still beside them. When deputies arrived, the campground was hushed. Campers whispered, their faces pale, their hands shaking. It didn't feel like real life. It felt like a story on the news, something that happened to other people. But it wasn't other people. It was them. Erica Beaudette got the call while she was studying for her medical board exams. She'd stayed home so Tristan could take the girls camping for the weekend. He wanted her to have peace and quiet. Instead, she got a knock at the door. What do you say when an officer tells you your husband is gone, that he was murdered, that your daughter saw it? There are no words, only silence, and then screaming. This wasn't the first time a shot had been fired in that park, but it was the first time someone had died. And that's what made it unavoidable. Because before Tristan's death, the warnings had been faint, shrugged off, forgotten. One man had been shot in a hammock months earlier. He thought it was a bug bite until he saw blood and had to have pellets surgically removed from his arm. Another couple found a slug in the back seat of their car while camping. Had it been inches higher, they might have died. But nothing happened. No press releases, no alerts, no signs posted. Why? Because no one had died. Because systems often only wake up when tragedy yells loud enough. By sunset, the area was roped off with yellow tape. Campers packed in silence, avoiding eye contact. Reporters swarmed. Helicopters circled. Malibu Creek was no longer a place of peace. It was now the center of a murder investigation. And though law enforcement promised answers, they had few to give. There were no suspects, no weapons recovered, no clear motive, just a hole in a tent, a bullet in a father's skull, and a community afraid to sleep outdoors. Later, when Erica would speak publicly, she often wondered if Tristan had known even for a second what was happening, whether he had a final thought before the bullet took everything away. She believed he did, and she believed that thought wasn't fear. It was them. If he had even one breath left, she said, he would have spent it praying they'd be safe. As dawn turned to day, news stations reported a man found dead in a tent with two young children. But that headline didn't tell the full story. It didn't capture the way the other campers wouldn't sleep for days. It didn't explain the way a park lost its soul. And it didn't reveal what authorities were about to learn. This wasn't the first attack. It was just the one they could no longer ignore. Tristan Beaudette wasn't a name many people had heard before June 22, 2018. He wasn't famous. He wasn't controversial. He didn't lead movements or headline newspapers. But to those who knew him, he was everything. A brilliant scientist, a devoted husband, a father who built forts out of couch cushions and packed school lunches with handwritten notes. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. But his presence filled every room he walked into with calm, with warmth, with purpose. Born in Fresno, California, Tristan's love for science began young. He was the type of boy who asked why more than any adult could answer. At school, he was known not just for being gifted, but for being kind. A former teacher once said, he was the student you remembered not because he needed attention, but because he gave attention. He would go on to earn a PhD in chemistry from the University of California's Berkeley. His mind was sharp, but his heart sharper. He never chased titles. He chased understanding and used it to help others. At his lab in Orange County, he mentored new interns, stayed late to help colleagues, and worked with a quiet discipline that inspired everyone around him. But Tristan's true masterpiece wasn't his career. It was his family. He met Erica in high school. She was smart, driven, and never afraid to challenge him. He admired that. She admired his quiet strength. They grew together through college, early jobs, medical school. When they married, it wasn't a grand ceremony, but an intimate celebration. They didn't need extravagance. They had each other. And when they had their daughters, everything changed. Tristan once told a friend, being a dad is like discovering a part of your heart you didn't know existed. He lived for those girls. He would wake up early just to make them heart-shaped pancakes. He took them on nature walks and pointed out every bird, every leaf. He taught them to ask questions, to be curious, like he always was. That's why, when Erica had to prepare for her medical board exams, Tristan didn't hesitate. He said, I'll take the girls camping. You study. We'll be fine. There's something brutal about hindsight. The final hug, the last smile at the doorway, the moment you don't know is your last. Erica remembered every detail. The way Tristan joked about overpacking snacks, the way their daughters squealed as he lifted them into their car seats, the way he turned back, just once, and said, you've got this. We'll be back before you miss us. He never came back. When someone dies suddenly, we often focus on what's gone. But with Tristan, the loss rippled outward. It wasn't just Erica who lost her husband. It was two girls who lost bedtime stories. It was friends who lost the person they confided in. It was coworkers who lost the man who made their days easier. It was a world that lost quiet brilliance. Because not all greatness is loud. Sometimes it's the person who holds everything together quietly. And when they're gone, everything falls apart. In the weeks after Tristan's death, Erica moved through the world like a ghost. She had to explain to two children that their father wasn't coming home. She had to attend press conferences, court proceedings, and therapy appointments. She had to be everything and still grieve. But she never stopped honoring him. She kept telling their daughters who their dad was. She said his name every night. She wore his old hoodie when she couldn't sleep. People often said, "You're so strong." She hated that, because strength wasn't a choice. It was the only option. Tristan's former classmates launched a scholarship in his name for students passionate about science. His research team set up a memorial bench outside the lab. Thousands donated to help his family. His story moved strangers, not because of how he died, but because of how he lived. One message left on a fundraiser page read, "I didn't know Tristan, but now that I've read about him, I wish I had." We live in a world that often celebrates charisma over character, fame over integrity. But Tristan's death reminded people of something deeper, that the world is held together by good people you may never hear about. The dads who build Lego towers after work, the scientists who help without ego, the husbands who listen without judgment. When they're gone, the silence is deafening. Tristan's story mattered not because it was sensational, but because it was real. Because he was the kind of man who shouldn't have died like that. And yet, he did. As the investigation into Tristan's murder began, reporters focused on the mystery. Who did it? Why was there a suspect, but those closest to him already knew the most important answer, who he was? And that was the question that mattered most. Because when you understand the depth of the man who was lost, you begin to understand the scale of what was taken. When news broke that a father had been shot in a tent with his daughters, it felt like a lightning bolt, sudden, blinding, tragic. But the truth was, the sky had been darkening for a long time. Tristan Beaudette's death wasn't the start of the story. It was simply the moment the world could no longer look away. In the 2 years before the murder, the hills of Malibu Creek had whispered warnings. A man had been sleeping peacefully in a hammock when he felt a sharp sting in his arm. He thought it was a bug. Then he saw the blood. He had been shot, and later required surgery to remove the pellets. Another night, a woman camping with her boyfriend in their car heard a loud pop. The next morning, they found a shotgun slug lodged in the back seat, just inches lower, and it would have gone through her spine. A week before Tristan's murder, another man was shot at while sitting in his vehicle. No injuries, no arrests, no follow-up. 8 people in total would eventually come forward. 8 people shot at over 2 years, and still, no one connected the dots. You might expect that after the first few incidents, signs would go up, patrols would increase, campers would be warned, but they weren't. The park remained open. Visitors came and went, pitching tents under stars that looked peaceful but hid danger. When asked later why nothing had been done, a spokesperson gave a quiet answer. There was no indication these incidents were connected. But what counts as connection? A pattern? A weapon? A name? Or is a single bullet not enough? There's a kind of danger that doesn't make noise. It hides in bureaucratic language, no evidence of a link, still under investigation, low risk to the public. But silence in cases like these isn't neutral. It's deadly, and the fear of public panic often outweighs the responsibility to protect. It wasn't that officials didn't know, it's that they chose not to say. The break came from something small, a vending machine. Late one night in Calabasas, someone blasted open a snack machine, not with a crowbar, but with a firearm. Surveillance footage showed a figure in black, carrying what looked like a rifle. No face, no license plate, just a shape. But it was a clue. Deputies began tracking footprints, They combed the hills behind the sheriff's station. And eventually, in October 2018, 4 months after Tristan's death, they found what they were looking for: a makeshift encampment tucked deep into the wilderness. Inside, they found Anthony Rauda. Rauda wasn't just homeless. He was unreachable. No address, no car, no phone, no real record of existence except a criminal history, convicted for carrying explosives, caught again with an illegal loaded firearm, history of violence and mental instability. His sister would later say he couldn't function around people, that the wild was the only place he felt safe. But Rauda wasn't hiding from the world. He was hunting in it. When deputies searched Rauda's belongings, they found a rifle modified, short-barreled, the kind of weapon that could be fired from a hidden perch. Forensic teams ran ballistics. Weeks later, the result came back. The bullet that killed Tristan matched Rauda's rifle. So did the slug from the vehicle shooting just days earlier. Finally, the whispers in the hills had a name. Rauda was taken into custody quietly. No shootout, no chase, just a quiet end to a quiet terror. He didn't confess. He barely spoke. But in his silence, the investigators found enough to charge him: murder of Tristan Beaudette, 10 counts of attempted murder, 5 counts of armed burglary. Bail was set at $1.1 million. He pled not guilty. Rauda wasn't a madman acting on impulse. He was calculated. He built shelters in the woods, chose remote locations, attacked from a distance, used night as his cover and silence as his shield. And he didn't escalate because he was angry. He escalated because he was successful. No one stopped him. No one hunted him. No one believed the danger. Until someone died. By the time Anthony Rauda was arrested, the damage had already been done. Tristan was dead. His daughters had lost their father. The park's illusion of safety had crumbled. And the question that lingered over everything wasn't how, but why it took so long. Why did it take so many warnings, so many bullets, so many near misses? The truth is simple and hard to swallow. The system didn't move until blood was spilled. Courtrooms are meant to be places of order, places where truth is measured, where justice is weighed. But the trial of Anthony Rauda was chaos from the start. He refused to wear civilian clothes. He refused legal counsel. He refused to sit still. He spat at deputies, threatened the judge, dreamed obscenities. On more than one occasion, he had to be strapped to a chair and wear a mesh spit hood over his face to stop him from assaulting others. This wasn't grief. This was rage. Cold, deliberate, disruptive. When Rauda demanded to represent himself, the court denied his request. He wasn't mentally fit, they said, but some questioned that because Rauda wasn't incoherent. He was strategic. His outburst came when he lost control, when he wasn't allowed to manipulate the process. He was smart, and as the judge would later say, smart and violent is a dangerous combination. The prosecution laid out the case. Ballistics matched Rauda's rifle to the bullet that killed Tristan. He was caught on camera with a weapon days before the murder. His encampment was just over the ridge from where Tristan was shot. But it wasn't just physical evidence. It was behavioral. A pattern. A man stalking campers, firing from cover, then vanishing for years. Rauda's court-appointed attorney argued for reasonable doubt. He pointed to DNA from an unknown cigarette found near the crime scene. Could someone else have been there, he asked. But the prosecution called it a red herring. It was a public campsite, they said. Anyone could have dropped it, but only one person had the gun. The jury listened, took notes, deliberated carefully, and then delivered their verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of 3 counts of attempted murder, guilty of 5 counts of burglary. They did not convict on earlier shootings tied to a different weapon that was never found. Still, the judge was resolute. This case was chilling, cold-blooded. You've shown no remorse. I've seen gangsters and domestic terrorists. You rank among the most dangerous I've ever encountered. She sentenced Rauda to 119 years to life. There would be no second chance, no parole, only silence. Erica stood in the courtroom. Behind her were years of grief. Ahead of her, only more of the same. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. We lost the entire future we had planned. I wonder if, in his final moment, Tristan had a thought, a prayer. If he did, I know it was for our girls, that they'd be safe. And because of that, I will carry on. For them, for him. She asked for the maximum sentence. She got it, but it didn't undo the damage. Erica filed a $90 million civil suit against the county and state. She claimed officials knew about the prior shootings but said nothing, that they allowed the park to remain open while danger prowled the hills. The agencies argued they had no legal obligation to warn the public. A judge gave Erica 30 days to strengthen her case. The burden, again, was on the victim's family to prove what should have been obvious. Sheriff's Lieutenant James Royal filed a separate lawsuit. He claimed he tried to issue warnings before the murder, but was shut down by superiors. They told him not to stir panic, not to damage the park's image. He was demoted, transferred, investigated. Eventually, his suit was dismissed, but his message remained, we knew, and we didn't act. There's something grotesque about the idea that public image was protected more fiercely than human life, that a man could be shot in his sleep beside his children and the warning signs leading to it were buried in silence. We trust systems to keep us safe, but when those systems care more about headlines than honesty, people die. Erica's daughters are growing now. They still ask about their dad. Some memories are sharp, others fade. Erica keeps his memory alive, not through monuments, but through stories, the way he danced with them in the kitchen, the way he laughed at his own bad jokes, the way he loved them fully, endlessly. Grief never disappeared, but neither did love. In Tristan's name, Friends created scholarships. His old lab hosts outreach programs for young scientists. Erica, when strong enough, speaks publicly about resilience, loss, and what it means to parent alone. Tristan's legacy isn't just in science or fatherhood. It's in the way people remember him with respect, with sorrow, and with admiration. We often hear of crimes and quickly move on, but this one lingers because Tristan wasn't doing anything reckless. He wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was where he belonged with his daughters, in nature under the stars. And that is what makes it so cruel. The randomness, the silence, the preventability. There are still questions left unanswered. But one truth remains: Tristan Beaudette lived a beautiful life. And though it was stolen, and his light, somehow, still shines.